will discuss about it in detail because we are joined by Shriram Subramaniam from InGovern to discuss about this. Mr. Subramaniam, welcome to the show. My first question to you is, now that we understand that Reserve Bank of India has said no to the proposal of averting the listing, how do you think the group can move forward?
Afternoon. Firstly, as you rightly said, one is Tata Sons would obviously want to avoid listing. They have recently just repaid back debt of 20,000 crores that they had borrowed from the market. So to that extent, they're near debt free. Two is they will try to engage with RBI again to see whether they can avert this listing. And three is if RBI doesn't relent, I'm sure this will end up in courts. So I would think that Tata Sons will definitely take it to courts. It's happened in the past where Kotak has taken RBI to courts. So from that perspective, I would think this will also end up in courts if RBI doesn't relent.
Mr. Subramaniam, there was speculation that Tata Sons may transfer its holdings of Tata Capital to another entity. And there was also a proposal that Tata Sons can reduce its holding in Tata Capital. They're right now owning 97% equity there to below 50%. Do you think those becomes feasible? They become, a criteria for them to get a waiver from the norms?
I would think so. Obviously, if RBI is pleased with those steps, then Tata Sons would look towards, I would say, operationalizing those steps. One is to understand what is RBI's specific concerns on why Tata Sons should be listed. What is the reason when Tata Sons has no debt whatsoever, has only a close number of shareholders, which is less than 20. So what is the specific concern of RBI? So from that perspective, if it means that selling out Tata Capital or doing some transactions with respect to Tata Capital, probably if that pleases RBI, definitely Tata Sons would consider those steps.
Tata Sons as a core investment company, and also they have, in the last financial year, they have become debt free. They have mostly repaid their borrowings. In your view, are they sufficient criteria for them to, get an exemption, to be treated specially in this case, and not going ahead to do an IPO?
I would think so, because at the end of the day, it's a closed set of shareholders. It's the share. It's not taken third-party debt or shareholder. It is not seeking to get other third-party shareholders. So from that perspective, it's not truly an NBFC in that sense of it is not having any debt from outside third parties. Two is as a investment company, it's more of an investment vehicle and sort of a, though it has turned public and became later a private limited company. So from that perspective, I would think it deserves this exemption. Because there is no compulsion for Tata Sons to get to raise funds or to get additional shareholders.
Right, you mentioned the right point, but you would have seen recently on ET Now that we also reported that Mr. Noel Tata is now on the board of Tata Sons. Now he has joined, and now he also has the task of solving this issue, whether or not to speak to Reserve Bank of India or go for listing. How do you think Tata Sons has options right now on the table? Which options are there?
No, as you rightly said, I don't think the direction of Tata Sons will change just because Noel Tata has come on the board of Tata Sons itself. Chandrasekharan has been there as chairman. The board has eminent personalities who have their own independent thinking. So from that perspective, I think the options around it will not change just because Noel Tata has come on the board. So I don't think Tata Sons would like to list at all. I mean, given the fact that it doesn't need the capital and it is not entertaining of third-party shareholders.
Right. A few of the things which we have understood through sources that Reserve Bank of India is very firm on the fact that whatever norms are there for core investment companies, that should be followed in the entirety. It is not only for Tata Sons, but for all the companies. As a regulator, they want it to be implemented. Now, I want to understand here, one of the norms says that even if the company changes in some form in terms of norms, in terms of holding, but the rules needs to be implemented for 5 years if you are a core investment company. Now, Tata Sons is definitely classified as core investment company. I want to understand that from a corporate governance point of view, how important it is there for stakeholders and shareholders now that Reserve Bank of India has said no for listing.
So that's what, as I said, there will obviously be exceptions that Reserve Bank would could decide on, and I would think Tata Sons will work towards those steps that will satisfy the RBI. So I don't think there is a need for Tata Sons to list. Two is from a corporate governance perspective. I think as far because it has a set number of shareholders, the only shareholder probably seeking listing is the Shapoorji Pallonji Group, which will get liquidity if the shares of Tata Sons is listed. So they would be probably the only shareholder that will sort of be happy with the listing of Tata Sons.
Right. So about 11 months to go for Tata Sons for the deadline to kick in. So you see any hope left for Tata Sons now? Is there any hope they can get an exemption?
So that's what, as I said, one is obviously their engagement with RBI and the steps they need to take. Two is, or they will take it to court. Three is obviously very, very small probability, which is definitely they may go for listing, which is a very small probability. If they go for listing, obviously this will be one of the highest market cap, or at least from a perspective fundraise, because if they need to raise even 10%, they will probably list at above 5 lakh crores kind of market capitalization. So I would think that it is going to be a huge bumper listing, and they would need to raise a lot of more than 50,000 crores of funds. So it's the markets have to be obviously 11 months down the line be buoyant as is today and bullish. Two is there will definitely be takers for issue by Tata Sons, but it's going to be a large issue.
How complicated will it be, given the fact that Tata Sons as a holding company has hundreds, or maybe they say even more than 400 subsidiaries? How complicated in terms of the disclosures, in terms of the paperwork, how complicated and complex will the exercise be?
I don't think, yes, the due diligence may take time, the due diligence by merchant bankers, etc. But I don't think Tata Sons as a company should have robust processes. And I would think it should be fairly simple, given that it may not be very complex structures, equity holding structures, cross holdings. They have tried to minimize over the past few years. So they have tried to cut down the cross holdings. So from all these perspectives, the embedded value in Tata Sons should be easily discernible, given the fact that though there are 400 subsidiaries or holdings, many of them are large listed companies, and the unlisted companies, of course, are not as large as listed companies, and value should be easily be determined.
Tata Group. So in 15 companies which has been identified by Reserve Bank of India for mandatory listing compilation of these norms, 2 companies of Tata Group are there. One is of course Tata Sons, and there is also Tata Capital. We have also understood that Tata Capital is definitely preparing for listing. There is RBI approval which has recently come from merger of Tata Capital is Tata Motor Finance. Now, as a next step, do you think that Tata Capital will first come into market? And one of the speculation which was there in market, that after that they may once again go to RBI?
Yeah, I would think so. So, if, as you rightly said, if RBI is satisfied, if there is some changes in structures or holdings between Tata Sons and Tata Capital, or if Tata Sons can transfer some of its equity holdings and or any structures to Tata Capital and just list Tata Capital. Probably that is something that I would accept, and they would list Tata Capital.
Right. Mr. Subramaniam, we are also joined by Mr. Ashvin Parekh, Managing Partner of Ashvin Parekh. Welcome to ET Now. We are breaking the news here that Tata Sons may not have got exemption from Reserve Bank of India on the mandatory listing part, which is supposed to happen by September 2025. I want to understand for you, what are the options which Tata Sons may explore now?
To begin with, since they're coming up in the upper layer of NBFCs, basically. So, therefore, one, of course, is listing is one of the options. And then, of course, depending on how reliable this source is, we may have to still look at the dispensation that Tata has sought from RBI. We do not know exactly what.
You expect more dialogue?
Yeah, I understand there is a problem with the patchy line. We will dial Mr. Ashvin Parekh once again. But Mr. Subramanian with us, what I was discussing, the major question which comes again and again is the options for Tata Sons, given the fact that recent developments which has been there after Ratan Tata, Noel Tata has taken over, his involvement in Tata Trust as well as Tata Sons now. Do you think that as far as the control of Tata family, as far as the corporate governance is concerned, this becomes important for stakeholders and moreover the prospective shareholders that Tata Sons come to the market?
I don't think Noel Tata, just because he has taken over from Ratan Tata, will seek to rock the boat or make any dramatic changes. As such, there is a leadership faith in of all stakeholders in Chandrasekaran, and the route that he has been taking and the board of Tata Sons has been taking over the past few years. They have definitely consolidated many of their shareholdings, increased their shareholdings in some listed companies like Tata Steel, Tata Motors, etc. They have tried to consolidate businesses under common umbrellas. So they have tried to do multiple things which are in the right direction, and that has been reflected over the past 5, 6, 7, 8 years in the increase in market capitalizations in Tata Group companies. So from that perspective, Noel Tata, I would doubt, would be like a bull in a china shop, who would try to rock the boat or do anything which is dramatic or drastic. If anything, he has to still prove his own credentials to other members of the board and to other stakeholders. So I don't think there is a need to for Noel Tata to or the Tata Sons to change anything of their thinking, any of their thinking. So from that perspective, I would still think that Tata Sons will not like to list. Tata Sons will try to work with RBI or take RBI to court. 3 is Noel Tata by himself still has to, I would think, get buy-in from internal and external stakeholders. I don't think even investors, public market investors know Noel Tata very well, or what is his style of working and how credible and this one he is. So all these factors come into the picture.
Mr. Ashvin Parekh is back with us. Mr. Parekh, we were discussing the options before the table for Tata Sons. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So once again, I still do believe, the deadline is still in 2025. I still believe that with proper sort of representation, certainly Tata Sons may be able to get dispensation from the RBI. The point here that is to be made is that because Tata have created a structure which is very different, basically, and RBI does agree that they may consider each and every sort of, thing on a case-to-case basis. So I still believe that Tata Sons may still be able to sort of, represent to the RBI and may get the exemption basically.
Mr. Parekh, Noel Tata has taken over as the chairman of Tata Trust. So you expect Tata Sons to persist with the dialogue with the central bank, rather than, taking a legal recourse. This is something, you expect them not to give up hope. What are your expectations?
Yeah, I mean, basically, I don't think with a regulator, the confrontation approach is a good idea at all to begin with. Because, the regulator, of course, will have the right. If they examine the case. If there is a regulation associated with Tier 1 NBFCs, then, or Level 1 NBFCs, then they will certainly look at that. I suppose more than a litigious approach, I think a representation approach is something maybe, Mr. Tata may prefer. We'll have to still see, how reliable this one is, the source that you have. And I still believe that proper representation of data, may make the regulator examine it, in that sense.
Mr. Parekh, one last question before I let you go, straight one. You expect Tata Sons to list or not?
Well, I would say it's very difficult to list that entity considering that there are several investors behind different organizations, involved. I would certainly believe that the structure that they have evolved and the dispensation that they are seeking from the regulator may perhaps work out,
All right, thank you gentlemen for joining at this hour. So the big news coming in that Reserve Bank of India has guided that Tata Sons may have to follow the core investment company norms, and there is no dispensation which is coming in for regulator. But for our viewers, let me make it very clear that these are ongoing developments. We had reported earlier that a proposal has been submitted to Reserve Bank of India, and now we understand that Reserve Bank of India had guided Tata Sons that no dispensation will be given. All right, so Sumita, this is it from our side. For now, there is no relief which is coming in from RBI.
Definitely no relief really coming in, Ankur and Anurag. Thank you very much for that special segment that you brought for our viewers. In fact, this is something, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be watching out for in the near future, whether Tata Sons will once again approach RBI for a more waiver, because like I said, ladies and gentlemen, the potential listing of Tata Sons has significant implications, not just for the holding company, but for the entire Tata Group ecosystem as well. Whether they will seek to comply or will seek further exemption is something that will be closely watched. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, it's time's up from us on this edition of News Now, but do join us for more on the other side.
There comes a time when your heart calls for you to arise. Plant your feet solid into the ground. Decide your own limits. And then break right through them. Become something more. It's my time to rise.